I have the huge privilege of just interviewing Charles today. If you've been watching our episodes, as it's unfolded, Charles has educated and schooled me on so many different things. And we really wanted the very first podcast of the year to be just the two of us. And you talk about your new project. And I'm really excited about today.
Thanks,
really,
Gary.
Really excited.
I'm really looking forward to it.
So if you've never watched the podcast, I think it makes sense for us to introduce ourselves. If you watch till the end, you really will benefit from a better understanding on what carbon footprint is, all the things you can do to improve your carbon footprint in the world, and there are actionable things that you can do. Very simple.
And choose, which is what we're talking about today.
So who are you?
So, well, first of all, welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is Improve Your Carbon Footprint, where we talk about climate change, what's happening, the threat, and what we can do about it. Today, we're talking specifically about global warming and about choose. So this is a very special discussion today, because the situation is, as I'm sure you've heard from the news, is that basically, if we're on track to for global warming of about 3 degrees, so we're on track basically for global warming to wreck our planet. Now, is this really what we want? So if it isn't what we want, it really is time to choose. It's time to choose. It's time to choose to stop global warming. Take a look at the new website, which is www.stopglobalwarming.today. So my name is Charles Appleby. I'm the founder of No CO2, that's n0co2.org. We plant trees, plant enough trees, and you go carbon neutral. And then the new project, which we're talking about today, is Choose. So take a look at the website. It's www.stopglobalwarming.today. And I'm joined on the panel by Gary. So Gary, over to you to kick us off.
If you're new to this podcast, I think you've sold yourself short a little bit. You haven't really told us about your story and who's Charles Appleby? What drives you to care about all of these things?
Well, Gary, my interest in climate change really came out of traveling by air. So my wife comes from Singapore, and so around 2010, it was that I started to become aware of just how much CO2 emissions we're creating per person. So it's basically over it's about 1.5 tons of CO2 per person per journey.
How heavy
each
is
way.
a ton? When you think about a ton, how is it? I don't want to put words in your mouth. When I think of a ton, I certainly have a picture in my mind. How do you describe a ton?
Well, Gary, what's your car weigh?
I'd say a ton.
Maybe 10.5. So basically, that's the journey to and from each way. The journey to Singapore is creating about 1.5 tons of CO2 emissions. So I took a look around at what was going on, and at the time, you could buy offsets. Now, I was involved myself in a number of charity projects, and what I really wasn't happy about the level of transparency. So yes, you could give money to the airline, and they would do something with it, but it wasn't clear what they were going to do and the end result. So in the end, I decided that the way forward was to set up my own project, which is No CO2, n0co2.org. It enables people to do something about it by planting trees, and it's very, very simple. For every £1 you donate, we plant 10 trees. So that's 10 trees for every pound, and those trees are planted in Madagascar, Indonesia, and Nepal, and they create paid work for people in extreme poverty. So that's what that's about.
An
Gary.
Amazing project. And if you do a Google search, sometimes it can cost up to £5 to plant one tree. The very economical way of reducing your carbon footprint. My name's Gary Kasulu, and I'm the huge privilege of being part of this podcast. I love social media and search engine optimization. Charles and I met at a self-development course called Landmark Forum, and here we are trying to make a difference in the world. Now, Charles, we're going to stick to script. Keep tight, but I'm bursting.
Okay, Gary.
One of my favorite sayings is a ton of regret is do you know what, it's going to come to me, it's on the back of my iPad, that an ounce of discipline is worth a ton of regret. That's it. And the fact that we're using the word ton, so to use like today I chose to cycle to work because
amazing,
I can.
Amazing, Gary.
Like, it's good for my health, it's good for the environment, and that brings us into the word choose. Is that why you chose that word for your new website? Because what's it all about?
The word choose is fundamental. So I've been talking to people for a couple of years about planting trees, and a lot of people are interested in planting trees, but to be honest, not enough people have been interested in it. So that's where choose came from, and really it's about it's not about me and Gary preaching to people about what you should do with your lives. It's about us setting out some insight into what's going on in the news, and then saying to you, look, you choose. It's up to you to choose. What sort of world do you want? Do you want a world where climate change wrecks the planet and the future of our children? Is that sort of world you want? I mean, I really don't want that. Okay?
Charles, there's a lot of misinformation out there. I read an article just last week in the Telegraph, and it's an intelligent paper. It said that the fact is Mr. and Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Average, can make such a small difference. It will make, on a global scale, make no difference whatsoever.
Totally disagree with that. Totally disagree. I mean, that's not what this is about at all. So Gary, the first thing is that with choose, it comes down to what you want. What sort of world do you want, right? So if you don't want to wreck the planet, then you need to choose. You need to choose to stop global warming. What you then need to do is very simple. You sign up on the website, www.stopglobalwarming.today. And then the first thing you do is you share. You can share through the website, you share with other people. So the whole idea is to inspire other people, to get them to join in as well. So you're multiplying your impact. Then you take action. And you choose what action you take. There's a load of stuff on the website. There's other stuff you can do. But its key is to choose. Now this needs to roll out, but we're at a point where huge amount of work was done, amazing work in 2019. Greta Thunberg, Extinction Rebellion did a fantastic amount of work, but clearly that isn't yet enough. So that's why I've got a new initiative, and it's all about choose. You choose.
Look, I've already signed. It doesn't take much. So Richard Attenborough, the new Sky are doing a brand new project about global warming. I have to thank Sky, actually, at the amount of work that they do with cleaning up the oceans. Now they're talking about global warming. But we do need to tackle the cynical people that say, look, what difference will it make if I plant a tree, or that I don't take beef out of my diet once a week? So why do we want to take action? What's the point of all of this?
What's happening here, Gary, to put the thing in context, is that the UN, on behalf of all the governments of the world, have been working on climate change for 25 years. So they had their last big conference in December in Madrid. It's called COP25. You may have heard about it. And even the head of the UN said it was a disappointment, because what they wanted to do, they wanted to basically get all countries to step up to higher ambition to do more. So if you look at it, who really is blocking progress? Who's blocking what's going on? Why aren't we making the progress? So we've got 200 governments in the world, and obviously there's probably 20 or 30 major, really important governments here who really do make a difference. We've got the fossil fuel companies, we've got the airlines who've got an interest in continuing what they do. But basically there's 7 billion people on this planet, and some of them work for these companies as well. So there's 7 billion people on the planet who are going to be affected, and all of our wildlife. So if all we've got to do is get together and say to these people who are blocking stuff, we've got to say, look, guys, this is not what we want. Our choice is to do something about it, to stop global warming. If enough of us say that, they haven't got a hope. they'll have to change. I mean, they are changing, but they're just changing so slowly that it's not making a big enough difference. And this needs to be the campaign of this year. As I say, last year was about protesting, getting climate change on the table, amazing job being done. This year is about really delivering action, and we need everybody to do their bit. That's all we need. Just do your bit.
Topically, right now, there's Australian fires that are burning. They've had the hottest day within 12 months. And the Australian government say, well, we do just enough. We tick the box. And the Australian people are very angry that fossil fuel is being used over a more they're surrounded by oceans and wind and what have you. So just doing enough isn't enough, is it?
It's not enough.
We need people power.
We've got, today, we've had probably 1 degree of global warming, right, so far, okay? We're on track for over 3 degrees, maybe 4 degrees, and the scientists have said that basically if we keep global warming to 1.5 degrees, then we can pretty well approximately preserve, the most of the best of what we've got now, okay? But even at 1 degree, look what's happened. Last year, 2018, massive, biggest ever fires in California. 2019, massive fires in the Amazon, fires in Siberia, can you believe it? Massive fires in Siberia, and this last burst of fires in Australia. So if this is happening at 1.5 degrees, can you imagine what's going to happen to the world at 3 degrees? It's time for people to, people haven't been putting the connections together. It's time for people to put the connections together. We listen to the news, we watch the news. It's about things happening to other people, really bad things happening, people doing crazy things. This time, people really got to listen. They've got to listen to what's going on in the news, because what's happening is about what's going to happen to us.
Now, the word irreversible should worry everyone watching this. So some people, they might be dismissive and they say, well, we'll probably wait till all the fossil fuels have run out and then we'll do something. But here's that word that concerns me as a father, the word irreversible. And we don't need to get to that we're already at a crisis, but we don't need to get to the point where it's irreversible. So can we talk about some positive things? Let's talk about the possibilities. What are the possibilities for a positive outcome without that that word? Because when I hear that on the news, it'll be a very sad day for mankind when we're saying this global crisis has now turned into a situation where we will never be able to reverse it.
Well, we've had people in the world have had massive crises before. I mean, our generation, the last 20, 30 years, a lot of people in the world, particularly in the West, we've been very lucky that we haven't had these massive crises. If you go back in history and look at what's been done, then basically once people turn their mind to it, then amazing things can happen. They can be done about it. And so this is really what it's about. It's about people actually doing something about it, making a decision, first of all, making the choice themselves, making that commitment, sharing with other people, and then basically taking action. And if we take action, there's absolutely masses of stuff we can do. So Gary, you're cycling to work, amazing, yeah. So how big an impact on on your CO2 emissions do you think that the impact is of you cycling?
If I'm honest, I think it's a drop in the ocean, but I am an optimist. I think if everybody tried just a little, we could put governments under pressure. I think the government, when I saw the Australian crisis and people refusing to even speak to the Prime Minister, I think that this people power is very powerful. So I think more people got on the bike, if we ate less beef, if we tried to use a train instead of a plane, public transport, all working together. And I'm sure we're going to get into this interview later on and we're going to talk about the things that you can do.
Well, pick up on your cycling, Gary.
Yeah.
I mean, don't knock it. Yeah. I mean, every litre of fuel you save is 2.5 kilograms. So if you leave the car at home, every litre of fuel you don't burn, that's 2.5 kilograms of CO2 you're not putting into the air. So you multiply that by your miles during the year, by the number of people in the country, and then you've got a big number that's being saved if even for a few days we leave the car at home.
You are a carbon footprint calculator, walking one. Is there any tool out there that can calculate our carbon footprint on what we're doing? You're such a man of knowledge. How do you know all this?
There are tools out there. I mean, my frustration with a lot of these carbon calculators is that they ask you a lot of questions and then you're not sure where you get to. So it's really there's a couple of very, very simple numbers, right? This is why I've made it so simple. So basically, if you leave the car at home, it's 2.5 kilograms per litre of fuel. It doesn't matter what the fuel consumption of your car is. Every litre used, 2.5 kilograms. If you fly by air, very, very simple formula. It's 125 kilograms of CO2 per hour of travel. So you look up, you know where you're going, London to New York or whatever. You look it up on Google, it tells you how many hours the flight is. If you're coming back, you multiply by 2 and it's 125 kilograms for every hour. Now, if you're fortunate enough to be in business class, that's good, but you need to multiply your CO2 emissions by 3 and by 4 for first class. So if you go first class to Australia, you are in for a serious amount of CO2. You probably use 3 times your annual quota just going first class to Australia and back. That's okay. I mean, if you choose to do that, that's fine. You've maybe got the opportunity to do it. But do think about offsetting the CO2 emissions that you're creating. And you can offset that very, very easily by planting trees. That's back to the discussion about noco2.org. Plant a load of trees, plant enough trees to remove 20 tons of CO2 a year. You get a load of trees and you help people by creating paid work, and you create habitats for animals as well. So it's a good...
Let's rewind a little. You just said that it creates paid work. Because I was explaining this to a client of mine, and he really got sold on that. That we can, in Madagascar, feed a family, plant trees, win-win situation. Do you want to just explain the Eden project?
Absolutely. So the trees are planted by a partner. So we work with them. They've planted 265 million trees. They're ramping up. They can now plant. I mean, we were here in this studio when basically the CEO of Eden Reforestation talked to us about it. So they've got the capability now to plant 100 million trees a year. And last year, big sadness was that they only had enough donations from people like yourselves and ourselves. They only had donations to plant 60 million trees. They could have planted 40 million more trees if they'd had more donations.
My mind boggles at that many trees.
Well, boggle again, because in 5 years' time, Eden planned to have the capability to plant 500 million trees a year. So that's basically multiplying the current donation level by 10. So that's what we all need to do.
What I find astonishing is deforestation of Madagascar, 80%.
90%.
90%, right, I'm sorry for that. How many trees were taken down?
I don't know. I mean, it's like a lot of places. I mean, the most of South America was forested originally. So the whole Andes mountain range, which runs right the way from the north to the south of South America, that was originally forested. So that was all taken down by the people who live there, by the conquerors, all the rest of it. For whatever reasons. So, but the key thing is really to first of all protect what's left, because otherwise taking down trees creates even more CO2 emissions. And secondly, to really try and deal with that, to basically plant a lot more trees. So we need to plant a lot more trees. There's a lot. Madagascar's a big place. Not a lot of people live there, and a lot of extreme poverty. So it's a great place to plant trees. And by the way, trees grow really fast there as well. So the trees grow 3 times faster than they would in a place like Scotland, which is also a great place to plant trees, but except that they just grow faster, and it's cheaper to plant trees in Madagascar.
So what products are bad for the environment?
Well, there's actually people. It's really down to people to think about what's going on when they're shopping. I mean, 60% of CO2 emissions are created by what we buy. So electricity, I mean, 70% of people in the UK are still buying their electricity from the big 6. And so what that means is that most of that from them comes from fossil fuels. So if you're still buying still buying electricity from the big six, think about switching next time your contract ends, or think about changing now. Switch to one of the green electricity suppliers. You can access details on the website www.stopglobalwarming.today. You can access from there some details of some suppliers, and straight away you cut your CO2 emissions for your household on average by 1 ton. It's 1 ton, and that's for every year going forward, not just for this year. And weirdly, by switching you can save money on what you're currently paying. Most people can anyway, and by switching to clean electricity, green electricity,
well, you know what's
you
great,
can actually
Charles?
save money as
We
well.
actually have a library of podcasts. If you want to go back to podcast 5, I think you'll find that to be correct. We had an expert here talking to us about changing over your energy suppliers, saving money, and it was a fascinating talk.
Yeah, so we had Roland Babington in here, who's an expert on this, talking to you about it. So as Gary says, look at a previous podcast, it's all there. So you're asking Gary about what people can do. So switch electricity. Really think about what you're buying. Think about the products in front of you. Think about the packaging. Think about the air miles on the products. And another big one, which there's been a lot about this, because at the end of the day, this is Vegan January. There's been a lot about the impact of the CO2 emissions from eating red meat. So if you can move from red meat to basically taking a vegetarian meal or vegan meal instead, then you do save CO2 emissions. So there's a load of stuff you can do. Turn down the heating, improve the insulation at home. I mean, last year, 2019, I did a load of this stuff. I mean, the house is, even though we had the heating turned down, the house basically it is that bit warmer because we've got more insulation.
The fashion industry they have an impact, and when we're talking disposable fashion, I certainly since we've been doing this, my consumption of new clothes has drastically reduced.
And you're still looking smart, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Good news.
Thank you very much. I go into charity shops. I pick up some really cool ties. I bought a jacket. Maybe no, this wasn't the one. But I walked into a friend's charity shop and I just picked up a brand new jacket. Now the thing is, I think we need to think about that as well. Do we need it? However rich or affluent you are, do you need it to sit in a cupboard? Or please, if you've got clothes and shoes, give them to a charity shop.
It's recycle. I mean, we're everyone's really keen now on recycling plastics and all this stuff going in your recycling bin. But as Gary said, it's not just about recycling stuff that you're chucking out. It's also about recycling stuff that's in the wardrobe, good stuff that you can't use any longer. Put it to a charity shop, local charity shop. Get it to someone else. It really does reduce consumption. As Gary says, unfortunately, we've got into a situation where people are buying fashion stuff for single use. If you do need to buy a lot of fashion stuff, then again, it's your choice. But do make sure that you basically recycle it through the charity shops or whatever, rather than just chucking it out.
Well, what was lost on me is that to create something, to manufacture something, we need water, we need electricity to actually produce that thing. So if we can save on that, then that's a really positive thing. And the fashion industry is one of the industries that need to really look at themselves and think about how they're going to improve.
Absolutely.
What's the power of individuals like us to make a difference to stop global warming? As an individual, it doesn't have to be as extreme as voting for the Green Party or chaining yourself to a boat or a train. We can do some things. What actions can we take?
Well, again, I would say choose. People choose to do what they're comfortable with. If people want to do stuff that they feel is relevant, is important, then that's their choice. I'm not going to say don't do stuff, right? I'm not ruling out any options here. People do what they feel they need to do. Ideally, certainly it should be within the law what people do. But as a consumer, we have a lot of power. I mean, the whole marketing industry is driven to basically supply us with what we want. So if we say we want low carbon products, then basically they will listen. Then you've got the active consumer. So this is the amazing person who goes into the shop and says, look, this packaging you're using is unacceptable. I'm not going to buy a product with all this packaging. And they take it through the shop, they took it through their supply chain, through their management as a complaint to say, look, this is unacceptable. Then you've got the campaigner, as Gary says, people campaigning, people protesting. I mean, unfortunately, in 2020, I don't think we're past the campaigning and protesting that we had, that was the hallmark of 2019, because the government seemed to be maybe doing the right thing on climate change, but they haven't yet explicitly said what they're going to do in response to the climate emergency. So I guess that there's a date coming up. There's a school strike day coming up, I think, in March. So I guess people need to do their stuff, and let's see what the government has to say.
One of our guests said that one of the strong things we can do is work together in a community. So to find like-minded people and meet. You're part of something where you live. Can you tell us about that, Charles?
Yeah, so I mean, the first community is to take a look at is actually the Choose website. So www.stopglobalwarming.today. So that's a new online community. Mm-hmm. Take a look at what organisations there are around you, because if you join an organisation, then basically you have a bigger impact normally than if you do something yourself, and it also helps you through those times when you're feeling a bit down, because you're feeling down, someone else is feeling up about things. So I went to this last night. I went to this amazing meeting organised by the Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, and there were about 80 to 100 people there. Who were all really keen on their projects. So a whole range of projects that people had got. Everyone wanted to really make a difference with that. And so I think the opportunity for 2020 is, if all of that can be organised by the parish councils, by the boroughs, borough council level, going up to the government, if all that can be organised and brought together and coordinated, that is a huge power to reach out to people in the community and get them involved. And that's what's critical. People realising that basically there is a problem. What world do we want? What am I going to do about it? Yes, this is the situation we're in is unacceptable. I want to do something about it. I want to join in. I want to take action. I want to make a difference.
Lovely. So the Take Action website and the Choose website, what I love about that is if you've got different, it's very visual, and you've got lots of different options of what you as an individual can choose. Can you talk us through what the website looks like? It's very simple, very usable.
Sure. So you go to the website and basically, start on the home page. If you take a look at the menu, then in the menu you've got a section Take Action, and then in Take Action you take a look at these different activities that you can do. So to mention, so it covers the ones we've already discussed: switch your electricity, plant trees. There's some other ones in there as well, a couple of really interesting ones. So there's an organisation which helps to stop deforestation. So that's really important. They're working with local communities to help stop trees being cut down in the first place. And the fact is, in places like Brazil, there is huge pressure. You've got communities who've lost people because people don't necessarily want to live in that lifestyle any longer. They're under pressure, and the developers are offering money to say, look, buy you out, and the end result is that to cut down all their trees and basically wreck the whole thing. So still the opportunity is to support those communities, and this is what these sort of organisations do. So that's far away. Another one is rewilding. So rewilding is about rewilding the UK. So basically every acre that we rewild in the UK creates trees and plants which remove CO2 from the air. They create habitat for animals. wildlife and all the rest of it. And so if you apply this rewilding principle, just within a few years, you can make a huge difference to the environment. Oh, and by the way, you've got to stop using herbicides and pesticides, because this is what's killing off the insects, the birds, the bees, all this sort of stuff, which is now under huge pressure. We just can't afford to do this. We need more areas that are rewilded and can make a difference to the wildlife habitats.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And I can't overemphasize how you must go on this website. It's brilliant, because it really, as you don't even need to be an activist or an environmentalist. You just go in there, you have a little look, and you can see all the different things you can do.
So if you want to, we want to, I mean, at the moment we've just got a relatively small number of things that people can do, but the opportunity is there to expand this. So if you've got a local organisation who wants to do something, join in, then the idea is that we'll expand the scope of activities by city, by region, by activities, and make this bigger. So if you've got something that you're passionate about, then do contact us, join us, and
Is there any plan
to join up.
Is there any plan to do a Choose Facebook group, a closed group where like-minded people can come together and talk? Or are you gonna?
There's a Facebook page, and I think it's better, Gary. Actually, I mean, you know, this is your area. My feeling is it's best to have an open group so that people.
Yeah, the page isn't a place to discuss, but if there's a call, a group is the best place where people, like-minded people, can talk.
Okay.
Maybe that's something that we could start, something we could put on there, because people coming together from all over the world is a nice thing. So that's something. Now, the World Economic Forum at Davos is coming up this month, and everyone's committed to tackling climate change. What difference do you think it will make?
Well, Davos is a place where, apparently this year Boris Johnson said that no government ministers are going to be there, so maybe he'll be there himself, maybe he won't. But anyway, irrespective of whether the UK is represented or not, it's a place where a lot of really, really important people go, and they talk about stuff. And basically, if Davos says that, look, this thing's a good idea, then it is a good idea, and people will do something about it. So one of their themes for this year is about climate change. It's one of 7 themes, and so I'm really hopeful that stuff will come out of it. So one of the things being discussed is really, it's the idea of this coalition of the willing, which is governments, businesses, organisations, people, all of this stuff all coming together. It's a great idea. It's as far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer to support a coalition of the willing. We should all be doing that, and so to basically show your support for it, please sign up with the stopglobalwarming.today website, and we'll tell Davos what we want to join in. We want them on board.
Is that open to the public, the Davos?
Yeah, if you've got a lot of money, and you're probably too late to get a ticket now. It's I think it's mainly by invite, but there is a price on the ticket. If you're interested, they do a really, really good job. You can watch a lot of stuff live. You can get transcripts of meetings that have happened, the panels, all this sort of stuff. So you can actually join in remotely without having to travel there, by logging in from home to a lot of stuff.
And maybe what we will do, Charles and I will go through some transcripts and watch some video, and maybe so you don't have to watch it in such detail, we could do a Davos special.
Yeah, that's an idea. That's a great idea. Yeah, thanks, Gary. Yeah.
What does the world need just to stop global warming or reverse it? So do you think that we can go back to the pre-2000s of the temperature of the Earth?
So the temperature increase that we're talking about is an increase from the industrial levels. So this pre-industrial level, which is sort of England in 1780, before there was coal and steel and all that sort of stuff. And ever since then, the UK's done very well because, you know, there was coal and everything, and people used it. So it was in 1980. It was all the way through until 1986 that things were okay. So it was in 1986 that CO2 went over 350 parts per million, and that really is the level at which it causes a problem. So now CO2 levels are about 410, 412, heading for 415 parts per million. And so that's, by the way, that's in May. So it's May each year when CO2 is its highest. And that's what we need to get down. So we need to get CO2 levels, first of all, we need to get them stabilized, because at the moment they're increasing each year, and we need to get them down. And the scientists are saying we need to basically keep global warming to a maximum of 1.5 degrees. At that point, then we can start to protect the planet to how we know it now, and then start to try and wind things back to the level of 350 parts per million. And at that point, then we've got a secure home for, at least in terms of global warming, for the future, for future generations, for our children, grandchildren, and future generations, and all our wildlife and marine life.
So people say to me, but why should we bother when China and India and America pulls out of major agreements? Why should we bother?
Well, the way I see it is that global warming affects everybody. If people think that for some reason the UK and even Europe are going to escape this problem, then I think they really are in. They're not reading the news correctly, because what we've got is we've got climate refugees now with the world as it is. So we've got people on the beaches, escaping the fires in Australia. We're not going to escape this stuff, because people are going to want to come. If the UK is a little bit of a haven, a whole load of even more people are going to want to come here than they do now. So basically, global warming affects everybody. It affects all countries. It affects all 7 billion people on the planet. And so the opportunity for the UK, as I see it, is really for us to show some leadership here. At the end of the day, we see ourselves as being knowledgeable and leaders, and also relative to a lot of countries, we are still a wealthy country. And so the opportunity is for us to show some leadership, to get this sorted out, to show people how to do it, to be a case study. And the huge opportunity is at COP26 in Glasgow for the UK to showcase what's going on, and to basically talk to the rest of the world to get them to join in, get these other countries of the world to join in and do something about it.
I'm sure all the people watching, they're screaming, saying, but what are you personally, what's Charles Appleby doing about this?
What am I doing? Well, I'm doing what I can with the tree planting, with the website, and spending time talking to everybody on this podcast, this Facebook Live.
You are so passionate about this. Do you come up against people that don't want to talk about global warming or climate change or zero carbon emissions? Do you come across those people that are quite ignorant to it?
Well, a lot of people now are...
Say they won't change.
No, most people are concerned. I mean, the statistics are most people the surveys show most people are concerned about it. So most people want to talk about it. The point, though, Gary, is the point where do people actually, are they willing to do something about it themselves? Because people somehow, they're listening to the news, they're pretending it's not affecting them. They're pretending it's okay, and really the situation we have at the moment is it's not okay. I mean, clearly there's people who just say, look, it's nothing to do with me, I'm just going to carry on with my life as it is, and it's up to them. If their life is that they're just looking for themselves, then really that's their choice. But a lot of people, most people, are going to be really, really concerned about the planet. They're going to be massively concerned about their children. So, Gary, your children,
I've got children under 15. It's a big priority for them. They create councils at schools, and they all want to be on the Eco Council. That's one of the coolest ones, and how the school can change that. And I really like that we're training our young people to take care of the environment. And we didn't know. I'm from the 70s. I'm a 70s child. We had no idea of the impact that we were making with. I remember everywhere there were big chimneys with smoke coming out of them, and it was a regular thing, and you don't see that anymore because manufacturing was so huge here. And even in London, you'd see factories everywhere with smoke coming out of it, and that was all carbon based. Fossil fuel driven, no doubt.
Yeah.
Kids don't want that.
Yeah. So so Gary, you've got kids. How do you feel? How do you feel if your kids were facing this sort
I'm
of world?
incredibly sad that we're in this position. And it wasn't a priority. I think you were seen as fluffy or really quite extreme. Like if you were part of the Green Party or Sir Richard Attenborough, when you'd say, look, these animals are going extinct because we're creating something in their ecosystem. And it's only since that we've been doing this podcast that it hasn't taken much for you to educate me and for me to make my own choice. And I'm not silly. I'm very into, I watch the news. I love hearing debate. And it seems to me that for the sake of our children and the next generation, we are going to have to do something about this, and now. So what's your prediction for 2020? It was the movement of Extinction Rebellion and young Greta. It's been a good year, but there's so much to do. What do you think is going to happen this year?
I think for the UK, the really big thing is this Glasgow meeting. So this is the UN meeting of climate change for basically people at world leader level, coming to Glasgow in November 2020. Clearly, it's the UK is making a big effort to make this a success. So there'll be a lot of work behind the scenes to try and bring countries into line with the high level commitment to the to 1.5 degrees. And then there'll be the UK will be trying to showcase projects in the UK that have done well and show the way forward. So massive opportunity this year. But I think by the same token is that if we think that there is no need for Greta and Extinction Rebellion and all this sort of stuff this year, then I think the fact is that it will be needed, because there's a lot of countries which still need to come into line, and we need the government to basically be actually translating the good sort of noises into positive action that will really make a difference. Because at the end of the day, most countries in the world have signed up to the Paris Agreement, which is to keep global warming well below 2 degrees, but they have not yet put in place all the stuff needed to actually deliver that.
I can say this controversially. If you are, the Americans pulled out, if you are an American citizen watching this, you could actually write to your government, because you know.
There's a lot of stuff going on in America already. Yeah, we don't want to try and replace what's going on there, because a lot of people are very unhappy with what the US is doing about climate change. They do not agree with it, and so it's up to those people in that country to really do something about it. And the same applies to China and India as well. Ideally, people in those countries to take action themselves. It has a much more powerful effect than us just saying to people in another country, you've got it wrong.
Well, there's no charge for this podcast. All we ask for you is to talk to somebody else about that, or to like, share, make a comment on what you're watching, because this is truly global. The internet is a wonderful thing at times. So wherever you're watching this, you can make a difference. We've kind of covered the news of this week, but the Australian bushfire, Davos, where we're going to talk about the summit in Madrid.
Well, I think we've sort of really covered that, Gary, to the extent that it was a disappointment. It happened. What could have been achieved there with more countries committing to 1.5 and net zero by 2050 did not happen, and that's why this is all rolled over to Glasgow in 2020. And basically that's why we just need more action from everybody. So basically, as Gary says, please do sign up for the website. That's www.stopglobalwarming.today. Sign up, share, take action, and in the real world, talk to people about this as well. Ask people what they think about this. What sort of world do they want? What future do they want? And seek to get other people involved as well, because that's how the whole thing really makes a difference.
Being authentic is so important to me. I drive Charles quite crazy with that. I come off script occasionally and I ask, but you're not prepped for this, and I apologise for that. What do you plan for this show in 2020? Because I would love to go on the road. I'd love to go to maybe Glasgow and we interview people. What would be your possibility of what could happen for this show for 2020?
Well, I think, last night, as I said at the meeting, the big meeting in the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, there were 80 to 100 people who are really keen to do something, and they don't yet have a vision as to how to bring this together. I mean, for me, I would really like to offer this this choose approach. I'd really like to offer this as a platform to everybody who wants to get involved. So, there's 150,000 people in Windsor and Maidenhead. Use this as a platform for those people to get involved, put their projects on it, and where you are, you offer your projects. Come to us and say, look, you want next iteration of the website, you want your projects to be on there, and it doesn't matter whether you're it doesn't matter where you are in London or Manchester or Birmingham or New York. It doesn't matter where you are. Anywhere, basically come to us and say, look, you've got a project, you want to talk to a local community, you want people want your project to be part of Choose, please come and talk to us.
Great. And you can donate per month as little as £5 a month?
Yeah, you can if you put some money in to plant trees, just donate as much as you can. Think about how much CO2 you're creating, and just put in, if you can put in £5 a month or £10 a month to plant trees. That's n0co2.org.
We'll put that on the show notes. We will put that on.
Yep, that's all good as well. Great.
Well, I've missed speaking to everyone on a Friday. This is the kind of show that really makes a difference. Thank you very much, Charles, for your time and sharing so much knowledge. And I'm quite excited. We're going to sit here in 2021 and look at all the things that we've done. And on the projects that we're about to take on, I'm quite encouraged. There's going to be a Choose launch, if I'm not mistaken. We can't tell you too much, but potentially on the next podcast we can fill in some detail. But if you are a regular fan of this podcast, you get to come and meet us. We'd love to meet you. If you've got questions for Charles. Some of the previous guests will try and get them at the launch. It probably will be in London.
Yep. That's the idea.
Any time scale?
We'll just let people know. We'll let you know.
It's going to be in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So you've heard, we've given an exclusive tonight.
That's it. Okay, guys. So thank you very much for joining us. You've got the website www.stopglobalwarming.today. And the tree planting, www.n0co2.org. Thanks for joining us. Please do contribute, join in. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
That was